as soon as it gets warm enough, you need to find your way to some open water and start working on that because it is different. So do not the number. I'm sorry. The number of people that we had.
We need a horse. We need a horse on this couch so we can beat the dead horse.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Bing slouches.
Today, we are going to start the podcast with a question.
Are we now?
We are. When should I start? I'm training for something big. When should I start? We get this question all the time. It comes through with mainly with the 70.3 and like ultra distance athletes. You're taking on something that you're not even sure where to start, when to start, how to start. But it becomes a game of like, when do I have to start?
Yeah, I think most of us are naturally a little bit on the procrastinator side. So it's like, okay, what's the latest I could do? And there's a lot of factors that go into what we would tell someone as a coach on when is too late and when is much better to begin things. New Year's just happened for us. So this is the time where people are kind of looking at those big lofty goals. So we just kind of want to run through all that. And that'll be the topic of the day.
Yeah, so I'm Coach Dale Sanford.
I am Coach Bryant Funston. We are the co-founders of BPC Performance Coaching, where we specialize in helping time-crunched athletes optimize their busy schedules so they can maximize their athletic performance. You can find out more about BPC by going to buildpeakcompete.com, checking Facebook and YouTube at buildpeakcompete, all up on Instagram at BPC Performance, and all your major podcasting stations.
Ding! Well, by the way, so since we're focusing a little bit more on 70.3 distance, we've got Coach Heather on the couch. She does a lot of our triathlon coaching as well as our House of Pain strength classes. She's in on the House of Pain cycling classes as well, and she also manages a lot of our squad and our 70.3 beginner group. So brought her in to be another voice on the topic here.
The voice of reason.
Yeah. So
possibly.
There's not as much of a question on this when you're doing something shorter, like sprint distance, or somebody riding their first 20 miles on a bike or something like that. But as the goal gets bigger and more epic, the question just becomes, when do I start? And then it becomes, when do I have to start? Because most people procrastinate. So really what it kind of comes down to is if you're thinking about, we're just going to assume, because we float around the Memphis 70.3 now because it's our big race of the year in town. It's in October, and most people who are new to doing long triathlons are doing late season races because it gives them so much longer to train for it. But what it really comes down to is two things, really, like experience and how long is the event. So obviously, the longer the event, the more time you really want to give yourself to train for it.
The bigger the gap between where you're currently at, your current fitness level, relative to the demands of the event, the bigger the gap there, the longer you need to be giving yourself to get there.
Yeah.
So an absolute beginner that's training for something like a half Ironman, which, for most people, 6+ hours. That's a big journey, right? Going from 0 hours. From couch to 7+ possibly hours. That's a big fitness gap. And the bigger that is, the longer you need, which is part of the reason we're chatting about this right now, beginning of January, for something that's going to happen in October. If you're a beginner, you need that big buffer.
Right. The range I like to give is 12 weeks to 12 months.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you have experience in triathlon, if you've done even up to like an Olympic distance, you could do it in as little as 12 weeks. But if you are like off the couch, we're talking 12 months, upward of 12 months. The big thing with triathlon for most people anyways is swimming. And so if you have zero experience swimming and you're worried about even being able to cover one length of a pool, then you need to start as soon as possible in getting yourself in the water. So basically, if you have experience in triathlon, let's say up to an Olympic, you could do it in as little as 12 weeks. For most people like that we coach, if we're making a custom plan for them, I'd probably start them closer to 16 weeks just to give, I always like to give extra time for life to happen so that we can get some of those weeks back if something goes off the rails. If you are pretty experienced in 2 out of the 3 sports and one of them isn't swimming, if you swim, like cycling and running come pretty quick. I mean, if you haven't, well, I take that back. If you swim, you have an advantage. Running is the second one that needs to be a little bit more carefully progressed. So you don't want to give yourself too little a time to get yourself up to that, 13 mile or whatever distance. Cycling obviously is the easiest on the body. It kind of is the easiest to progress and even make mistakes on, and you can bump your volume up a little bit quicker than the other sports and have a less chance of like repercussions and injury and stuff like that.
I think that's kind of a big thing, because we ended up just this last year, we had a bunch of folks that were cycling only people.
Yep.
That were like, hey, I've got this big aerobic engine. I've been riding my bike for 10 years. I've been training at a high level for a bunch of years. Like, I've got a bunch of aerobic fitness, got a bunch of bike fitness. They weren't concerned at all about the bike. But the thing is, you take that same person and you have them do a 1 mile run and they're like, oh, wowzer.
Crushed.
So, what do you say to a person like that? If I know we were mentioning 2 sport people, but if we kind of dive into, especially a scenario that we had a lot of was, a cyclist going to becoming a triathlete is probably the hardest on the body transition of the 3 of those. So what kind of time frame are you guys thinking for that, and kind of best approach?
What would you say was the split like? So we had 43 people toe the line at 70.3. We'll take half of those out because those were like custom coaching. So of the people in our like training group, what would you say was the percentage of those people, of the 23 or 24 people that like came from either only running or only cycling?
I mean,
it was
almost all of them,
yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't say, maybe one that I can think of right now had a swimming background.
Yes.
And so we were like, with the training group, we had to get these people swimming ASAP. And the hardest part is this last year, pools were still closed. Right. And doing like registration for like lanes, and it was just everything. Hard. It was hard to get people somewhere to swim.
Yep.
So like if you have like the range, if you have zero experience in triathlon, especially swimming, or in any of the 3 sports, you need to start as soon as possible. Our training group is going to start the beginner track of our training group, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later, but beginner track of our training group is going to start the first Monday in February. And that goes from, you maybe have never swam before,
right,
all the way to October, where you will complete this Memphis 70.3. And we had 23 people in that group, and 23 people finished that race.
Yep.
So, we know it can be done in shorter amounts of time, but
But
wanna-
will you be as prepared? That's kind of
right.
And
Do
will
you
you
want to
be
crawl
injury-free?
across the finish
Yeah.
line?
Right.
Or do you want to cross the finish line with a smile on your face and get a kick butt finish line photo?
Yeah, like before we went on the recording here, that's what we were sort of discussing.
Yeah.
It's like how long does it take? Like, what's the absolute last to make it through and finish, or like,
Right.
what's the absolute last? That's again where goals comes into play, right? Like, what's your goal as far as the race is concerned?
Yeah.
Most of the folks that did the group with us last year, their goal was not to win the thing. Their goal was to
Right.
finish. They wanted to enjoy the day.
Yep.
And they wanted to be able to get through the whole thing with a smile on their face and have confidence at the start line, knowing that they were going to finish and they weren't just going to suffer like a dog
Right.
the whole way through.
Yeah.
In order to get to that point, that's something you can't rush. Your body can only train as much as it is able to recover from that training. So it's not like you studying for a test where you can study, take that short mental recovery, study some more.
Yeah.
This is something where the body takes time to repair itself. And if you don't give the body time to repair itself, either you're mentally going to blow out. Usually that happens first, but you're going to power through that because you got the goal. And then that's where the injury comes into play.
Yep.
So for the beginners, like talk through just a little bit, whether you're part of the group with us, this is kind of how it's going to start with the training group, sort of talk through that first kind of 6 weeks. So you got an absolute beginner or maybe someone who's got limited experience in one sport. Like just give people a feel for the fact of how gradual that progression is and kind of what they should be doing, whether if they're doing this on their own.
Yeah, so we don't like focus on like any zones or like anything like that for several weeks because the whole like first
It's not speed work the first
no.
first week.
Yeah, nah.
I was going to say the whole first part of it is learning to fit 3 sports into 1 week.
Which is a massive deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So we spend the first 6 to 8 weeks building the routine
Right.
of training 3 sports, basically. And we do throw some like technique stuff in there for people to think about. We always try to put like, our big thing is our 5 pillars thing. So fitness, the training plan and recovery is just like one part of that. And so we try to put in as much of the other stuff into the program as possible, whether that's through a webinar or through a short video or something like that. There's a lot of other things that affect your performance.
Yep.
So we try to touch on all those as well. But if you don't have the routine and you're not consistent, you're never
dirty C word.
you're never going to do the work that it's going to take for you to finish 70.3, let's say, and do it with a smile on your face. So first 6 weeks is really we're adding sessions, like short sessions, so that we can gradually go from, okay, maybe you're used to like running 3 days a week and that's it. So we're going to kind of take you from running 3 days a week plus a bike and a swim to running 3 days a week to 2 bikes and a swim, and then 3 days a week with 2 bikes, 2 swims, and then progress it from there until you're kind of up to that full training load of 3 swims, 3 bikes, 3 runs. And then we'll start building volume. But it's not until you have the routine down that you can really do any of the other stuff, because the consistency has to be in place first before we can really dive into the speed work and the building strength and fatigue resistance, stuff like that. So
routine's number one. People got to learn to actually get a routine that's going to set them up to success. And naturally with that, you end up getting a little bit your body used to handling a little more training stress.
You're doing more training just by the number of sessions you're doing. So you are going to gain fitness in the first 6 to 8 weeks. It's training for something by building the routines, but there's not any real focus on that. You're gaining from doing. It's not.
It's kind of like focusing on the consistency at first instead of the logistics.
And if you're a beginner, that's the absolute step you don't want to rush. And that's why we encourage people to start now. Like we're starting beginning of February. That leaves us a whole long period of time where we can, as coach, anyone we take on a custom coaching plan, what we're doing is we're looking at current fitness, which is what you should be self-assessing. If you're listening to this, what's your current fitness level? And how long do we have towards your goal? And again, back to what I was first saying, what's the gap there, right? What we don't want you doing is getting to that point where you have to increase volume 50% on your big days each week in order to get close to the mileage you're going to have to do on race day. Like that's something that's going to get you hurt, most likely.
I think an important statistic to point out is that
I love statistics.
This last Memphis 70.3, it was a sold out race. So there was like 3,000 spots that they sold, and like 1,800 showed up. And so some of that likely COVID related, but a lot of that would be people feeling unprepared, getting injured along the way, or just like totally giving up on the goal because they didn't know how to prepare for it. So,
or procrastinating.
Yeah.
And then it was
exactly.
like 2 months before the event, and they were like, oh, wait
and
a
then
minute.
you just get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like it's very easy to get overwhelmed when you're trying to cram for an event like that.
Yeah.
Give yourself the time.
And I know
regardless of ability, give yourself the time, because then you're going to be able to spend more time getting high quality stuff in too.
Yeah. And I know we've already said this, but I'm going to hammer it in. If you can't swim, if you have no experience swimming, get in a pool. Get in a pool, because you still at some point have to make that transition to open water, and it's not the same. So get in the pool, get comfortable in the pool where you can see stuff. You can see the bottom, you can see, work on your breathing and stuff like that. And then at some point, as soon as it gets warm enough, you need to find your way to some open water and start working on that, because it is different. So do not, the number of people that we had.
Need a horse. We need a horse on this couch so we can beat the dead horse.
the number of, it was like 5 or 6 weeks out from the 70.3, we did a course swim, right? Open water
yes.
Course swim. We set up the actual course for the most part and allowed people to swim it with safety, lifeguards and safety folks in the water and stuff like that. The number of people that I think there was like 150 people that showed up to the swim, and the number of people who came to that swim, and just the ones that I talked to that said, this is the first time I've been in the open water.
Yeah.
I was like, what? You came to swim 1.2 miles today, and this is going to be your first open water swim? Like, I was flabbergasted.
Dale said you did sign the waiver, correct?
Yeah. I've been holding on to flabbergasted
let's attach a buoy to that person if we could.
Yeah.
Hold on to flabbergasted.
You take a personal buoy.
But yeah, I mean, we did. We made a lot of people use those personal flotation buoys.
Yeah.
I mean, we people that were like obviously nervous about being out there. We had the lifeguards follow them specifically. It was an interesting day, but I was just really flabbergasted 2 times at one by the number of people that came and just had never been in there. And when we started the open water group this year, which started basically in May, so they had all these opportunities to get in the open water and never did.
Yeah.
I don't get it. So,
well, there was a lot of people that did that open water swim that signed up for the 70.3 that had never done a triathlon before and signed up for the 70.3 coming to the open water.
That's a whole nother topic. Don't let the 70.3 be your first race ever.
Yeah.
Build your way up.
Let's kind of go into that, because as a coach, we definitely don't want someone's first event to be something that's that large.
Yeah.
And that be your only race experience. The amount of nerves that happen, regardless on race day, there's always going to be nerves. I've been racing for a long time now, and I still get nervous on the start line. I mean, so that's one aspect of it. But, if you're putting all your eggs in this one basket for an event that a lot of folks usually wait 2-3 seasons before they progress to, you're kind of you're kind of setting yourself up for some potential issues there.
Yeah, I don't get to decide what motivates people. So if I had it my way, everyone would do at least a sprint and Olympic before a half.
Which is what we've got in the group that we're starting.
That's how we set it up. Yeah.
I mean, there's numerous local events, which is what this program what this group is kind of, it guides you towards.
Right.
So it guides you towards a shorter distance event first. You get experience there, you get comfort there. You're getting some open water experience there, and then you move on to a slightly longer event, going from maybe a sprint to an Olympic or an Olympic to another Olympic, but you're progressing along the way, just like your training should be progressing over the course of a season, right? We don't go immediately to super high volume.
Right.
We want this gradual progression.
And we literally broke all of that down in another podcast. It was I believe couched to 70.3. It was like number 86 or something like that. So if you want like the full breakdown of like what you should be doing when as a very new triathlete, go back and listen to that episode because it's pretty detailed. But so like if you are in that like let's say you are 2 out of 3 sports. So 2 out of 3 sports, you still want to give yourself like 20 to 30 weeks. Like again, especially if it's swimming that you're not proficient in, a lot of people can bike and run, but just haven't gotten the water because of whatever reason, fear of it or whatever. I mean, so 2 out of 3 sports, give yourself 20 to 30 weeks. And again, if you have experience in triathlon, especially if you've done like an Olympic, you can give yourself minimum of 12, upwards of 20, if you're really wanting to be super prepared for that. So like the question then becomes like we've already kind of talked about it. It's like the too late. Like, so like the people who are total newbies, like let's just say if you're going from, if you're going for October, too late pretty much starts in May.
Yeah.
Like that's essentially when we cut it off last year.
Yeah.
So we had beginners coming to us up through April. And at one point we eventually were like, hey, we do not feel comfortable with you going from doing nothing
right
to the path that you would need to be on to get there.
We basically set the plan up so that May is when we do an Olympic. And so theoretically by May, you should already be able to do an Olympic distance race if you're on a really good progression toward a 70.3 or in October 70.3. So yeah, like May is for October. May is kind of
that's
the last.
End of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Even even if you're pretty experienced, like I would want somebody starting in June, like July at the latest, like early July at the latest for a October 70.3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are just a few, you can do the math if you're not right at October, but those are kind of just some layouts there because that's the question is when's too late? Like, and then the panic starts. And then when you realize that it is too late.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think a big mistake people make is like, oh, I have plenty of time. Like I hear that a lot. Oh, I have plenty of time.
Exactly.
Oh, I have plenty of time. I can slack off right now because I have plenty of time. But I mean, it is almost February now. So.
That's a big reason why we, with our custom coaching athletes, do every 2 weeks have that countdown going. Like, suddenly, if you're not paying attention to it, you're thinking October, and suddenly you're at 16 weeks, and you're like, oh man, that's only 16. That's only 16 weeks away, and I got 2 vacations coming up, so that's 2 weeks gone, and then like suddenly you're like, oh man, I'm now behind. So you go very quickly from plenty of time to way behind, and getting started on the front end allows you a little bit of flexibility along the way as well for inevitable stuff that's going to pop up in life.
Yeah. So like if you are kind of in this route and maybe it seems really overwhelming to you, like there's a lot of options out there. There are there are a million plans out there. I'm not gonna lie. There's a million pre-made plans that coaches have made. A lot of them you can probably find for free online. But if you're really kind of looking for all the pieces of the puzzle, like all those 5 pillars that we talk about, there are a couple of options, better options than just getting a cookie cutter plan offline. One obviously is, the best option is obviously getting a coach, like one-on-one. You're working with them. They know your life schedule, work schedule, all that stuff, and they can create a custom plan around you, your life, where you're at now, and kind of guide you progressively toward that goal. That not the least expensive option, but it's the best option because they're going to create something for you that is 100% you.
Yep.
Right. Well, it factors in that life stuff. Like, I found out I got to travel for work, or, I'm surprised and now we're going on a vacation. Well, that's where that custom coaching would come in because we can work around it.
Yeah. Which is the number one issue that someone who's a beginner has. If you buy a plan, a pre-built plan that doesn't change along the way, it's assuming you're doing all of the training previously, building upon that, and that's kind of the way the plan works.
Right.
But if you're someone who has no clue on how you should adjust your training if you get sick or if you go out of town, it's very easy to get derailed or get behind or feel like you're having to play catch up, and issues can come from that. So custom coach, great in that regard for sure.
Yeah, and then there's another good option is like a training group, like our squad. The big thing, like the big value of the squad really is the community, like of people in that group. Like they're like a lot of our athletes that we coach one-on-one also are in, like, we do a lot of communication on Facebook through our Facebook group. So you, as a squad member, always have access to a coach. You can ask your questions online, and we are super diligent about going in there and answering those either through just a message or a short video or something like that. But you've got people in that group that are floating around that have either gone through the beginner track and are now like kind of more on the squad track, which we'll talk about in a second. But you've also got people who've been racing for years, some of them national or world level athletes that are also there to like share their experiences like with you, like, because they've probably been where you are now at some point. So the community side of a training group is massive. And, our group is very online based, but we do try to organize like meetups within the group. And then especially when we get deep into the 70.3 training, we do our course preview ride and stuff like that. It's a full SAG supported ride with the entire group or whoever comes.
I think a really major part of that is when you first sign up for an event, you're like super jazzed, super motivated, right? And then what happens after 6 weeks when you've been grinding it out for 6 weeks? You're like, I really don't feel like doing this, that, or the other. So being a part of a group or having a coach or having multiple, of these things that kind of get you through those times where you're not motivated, holds you more accountable.
I was just about to say the accountability factor
is massive. When you feel like you're doing this alone and you're the only one holding yourself accountable, it becomes really easy to not do those days you don't want to do.
Especially the hard days.
It seems like we always find an excuse on those hard days.
Yeah.
But like having a group, having people that are excited, having people that are saying we're doing training rides, join us. Like having a coach that's giving you input, giving you feedback, letting you know what's coming up this week, talking about what are the priority week workouts, why should you be doing those, like how should you be adapting your nutrition. Right. There's so many factors that go into it all. Whereas, if you're doing this all, by yourself, it can be really easy to lose steam along the way.
For sure.
Yeah, so go a little bit over because Heather does a lot of the like Monday rundowns, and so right now we have basically 2 tracks in our group. We have the beginner group, which again is going to start early February, and those are the new people training for a late season 70.3, and then we've got the squad, which is more of a year-round improvement, maybe intermediate, a little bit more intermediate to advanced level athletes who are looking for year-round improvement, but also are going to do those typical local races.
Right.
Memphis 70.3 being the big one for the year. Kind of go over like what you tell everybody basically every Monday.
Well, I mean, every Monday we go on Facebook. Facebook Live is what we use, and we'll go through the whole week of sessions, explaining every little detail, especially in the priority, like you were saying, the priority workouts, every little detail of that workout so you understand it more. Like there might be some verbiage in there that doesn't make sense. I was trying to think of one off the top of my head to go over, but we make sure we hit it, we go over it, make sure you understand it, ask for questions. And then, like you were saying, make sure you know if you're having a really busy week, hey, these are the sessions that you really want to make sure you get in, where you're not going to get that, like you're saying, on your own. So we make sure we go through everything so you fully understand the week and kind of know how to tackle it.
Yeah, the marked or the marked priority sessions.
Yeah.
You know, we always cover those in a little bit more detail. But those are the ones, you know, if you can only hit, you know, we generally will have up to like somewhere between 9 and 11 sessions on the, you know, once we get into it. But we always make it to where if you can only get in these 6 sessions, these are the ones you got to do. And that's, you know, basically one session, 6 days a week. If you can hit all these, you will still kind of make progress.
Right.
You know, we don't want that to be the norm per se. We want you to get in the other work, but if you can only hit 6, you'll still be moving along. Like here it is. So that's a huge difference between a cookie cutter plan and you know, something like a group training, because you're not going to get somebody kind of giving you how to work it if life happens and stuff like that. On top of like, we just have people pop into the group and they're like, well, you know, I had to get my kid home from school today. Like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I got a choice between one of the two. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Generally our answer is do the workout with the P on it.
What's P stand for?
The P. Priority.
The priority workout.
Well, another thing that like you kind of hit on it a little bit on the group is even people within the group have gone on and posted, hey, I'm going to do my long run at Shelby Farms on Saturday. Anybody else want to meet up with me? So I think that's another part of it too, is that it's becoming people reaching out to each other, trying to work out together too.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's people in the group that aren't local. Yeah. We've got people in Texas and, you know, other parts of the country. And, you know, for those people, it's just, it's like Brian was saying, like once you start feeling like alone in your endeavors and what you're doing, the motivation factor just drops. And so like even the people out of town, you throw up your, you know, your friends may not give a crap about your Strava stats and your bests and all this stuff, but we do. So when you throw that stuff into the group, you know, get your kudos.
I'll smash that thumbs up.
I'll smash it. I'll even throw a GIF in there.
You'll get gifts are good.
I'm a GIF king in the group.
GIF guy for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just a lot of value of having that kind of total package versus just the paper plan to follow each day. So you know the big thing to point out between like a one-on-one coach and a training group is just that, you know, like a one-on-one coach is they're going to be monitoring your training. They're going to be looking at what you hit, what you didn't hit. You know, you're going to have direct access to one person and say, you know, this is your coach. Let me ask you. You get a little bit more of a personal relationship with that person, and they know you, you know them. Like things stay very dynamic and custom to you, the athlete. With a group scenario like this, you've got a lot of people on what is a free-flowing dynamic plan, but there's, we can't monitor every bit of your training. There has to be a little bit more intrinsic motivation there. You've got to get it done. In our group, we do update. We go in and make sure we update thresholds. Like if somebody hits a new, like running threshold or a bike threshold or, a best swim or something like that, we always update that stuff for people just to keep the training more custom to you. But if you we can't physically go in and monitor the training of 20, 40 people all the times. But again, we're like in the group. So if you have questions, half the time I'm like waiting for somebody to ask a question just so I can go in there and put a GIF. I mean, I think through my
note to self: if you're in the training plan,
12 GIFs on
post
standby.
a question.
I got at least 12 on standby.
He's got them ready for you.
So just to throw in there, we are the training group, the squad we call it, BPC Squad. It's been such a cool thing to see people come into it from having no experience in triathlon, and watching them go through this process and, finish out the 70.3. And then a lot of those folks stayed on and they, stayed through the winter time to try to, make some improvements over the winter or, at least maintain fitness so they're not starting anew in 22. See what I did
New
there?
in 22.
So, we're working on constantly adapting the group squad and improving it. And, we asked for a lot of feedback after last year. One thing I will say is, with COVID, when in 2020, when everything got canned, we pivoted and we had to pivot. We had to pivot. So we started a dryland program for people because we couldn't get to pools and stuff like that. So that's another, kind of I'd say dynamic change that we had to make on the fly that benefited everyone in the group. So, that's something to consider, when we're still kind of in this purgatory of what the heck's happening with this virus and all that stuff. But what we're kind of working toward with the squad is adding different plans for people to pick from. So we're always going to have the beginner track, and we're always going to have the year-round improvement track, that kind of focuses on our local races. But we understand that people want to go and maybe do a different 70.3 at a different time of year or something like that. Or in the off season, they may want to focus on improving a single sport or something like that.
That was some of the feedback that we received. Was hey, love the squad, love the group, love the community. But I think it'd be cool if what if there was a plan for a 12-week to improve your bike?
Yep.
Improve your hill climbing, improve your running. What if there was just specific stuff that you could work on your own in the off season or at any time of the year? Or if you want to do a falls century or an early season spring century, or, if that could be worked into it, they thought that would be good.
Yeah. So we're working on coming up with other plans that if you jump off of one of the two major tracks, you can jump on another specific plan and then come back to that once you finish up that whatever 8 to 12 week plan. And then it'll probably morph into some race specific plans, because something for a Memphis 70.3 may differ. The training may differ slightly from if we get a big enough group that wants to go and do Blue Ridge that has a nasty climb on it, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So that's just something we're working on improving within the groups, just adding kind of this plan library for people to come and pick from. Probably one of the most common plans that we have to, if we do take them off the track, it's our 8-week road to consistency. Because if you fall off the wagon, we kind of have to progress you back into making those routines and getting back to 3-sport training. So, that's a plan that anyone can assign themselves and get back to consistent. Then you jump right back on the squad or the beginner track.
Yep.
Right.
That sort of thing. So, that's something that we're working on right now. We get a question on like the beginner group. We started getting questions on the beginner group the week after the 70.3 last year.
Yeah, I think next year we're going to start the beginner group
The
October
week,
12th.
the week after.
I
Yeah,
haven't checked dates yet, but what's 1 week after the race? The 8th? Was it somewhere around there?
yeah. And people ask what do I need to start? Like we've kind of gone through this podcast. We've kind of gone through when do I need to start, but real quick, what do I need to start? And realistically, you really just need some, ideally if you have some experience in 3 sports, that's great, but that's not required.
Nope.
Basically all you need are goggles.
Goggles, optional. I don't even think you need goggles.
You don't
I saw
technically
a guy
have to have
swimming at the pool
goggles.
the other day without goggles, and I was like,
So disregard that. Goggles,
Goggles.
out.
Goggles,
Scratch.
Optional.
running shoe. Running shoes are also kind of optional.
Barefoot, not as in as it used to be.
It's not
but
as
might
cool
make
as
a
it
comeback.
was. You need a size small Speedo.
It doesn't have to be size small. It just has to be a size too small.
Okay. That's also optional. Well, not to wear it.
Depending on where you're swimming.
I'm backtracking now.
If
Wow.
you own your own lake,
Yeah.
totally optional.
You need something to swim in, some sort of a suit,
Yes.
but not like a leisure suit.
Or for our Australian friends, togs.
Dogs,
Togs.
budgie smugglers.
Swim togs.
Yeah, we're going off track here.
I was like, we have derailed.
I think we should have let off with this.
Yeah, we need you would ideally have a working bike, and for
Or a borrowed bike.
let's okay. I'm just being honest here. If you are wanting to do a 70.3, it would be best if you had a road bike at least.
Yeah.
Like doing a 70.3 on a hybrid or a mountain bike is totally possible, but you will be so much happier if you were to do it on at least a road bike, an entry level road bike. No beach cruisers.
Beach cruisers.
They don't allow
not recommended.
e-bikes yet. I'm sure it's coming. But yeah, at least a road bike would be good. And a helmet.
That's not optional.
I'm going to go with a not optional as
that's
well.
not optional.
The bike and the helmet are really the only 2 major requirements.
Bike, helmet.
You got to wear it. Yeah, if you have an aero helmet, you are forced to, at least in one race, wear it backwards.
Yes.
And
the
point it
pointed
forward.
edge like that.
Yeah, all that to say, we did an entire webinar on
Equipment.
whether it's required, recommended, or something like that. So that's all there for folks to check out. But yeah, you can go to the website, and we actually have the webinar posted on the layout of how the season will go. Once you're in the group, we have a whole nother library of webinars we've done on the equipment one, like nutrition and hydration and blah blah blah. I mean, there's a lot of resources that we've already put together for the athletes to, again, improve not just the fitness side, but everything else that determines your performance.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that go into your performance on race day.
Yeah, I mean that's
where are we going to put the link for those that are interested? Again, it's starting the first Monday of February if you want to be a part of the beginner group.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the part where we said you had longer. That's the start date.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
you're
new, start now. So we'll put it in the show notes. We'll put it on the website under this episode. But you can also go to buildpeakandpete.com/IMMEM.
The letter M.
M.
Not am.
Not am. I am.
For Ironman.
MEM.
I-MEM.
Yeah. And that's the link to the beginner group. And then you can go to buildpeakandbeat.com/squad if you have a little bit more experience and want to jump in on the squad.
Sweet.
Socks. Yeah. What's sponsor today, Brian?
Oh, yeah, we should have let off with the sponsor, but since it's not actually a sponsor, today's sponsor is brought to you by the Costco 6-pack of weatherproof socks, keeping the footsies warm on a cold day.
I was going to throw in one more sponsor. Should I do it? Yeah. Okay. Today's sponsored by Frito Pies.
Oh, love me a good Frito pie.
The blowout you never wanted. Frito Pies.
Some call it a blowout, others call them cutting weight.
Getting to race weight.
Oh.
We're going to start a whole nutrition company on how to get to race
let's
weight.
not suggest
It's going to
Oh,
be
you've made
Frito
it this
Pies and
far.
Taco Bell.
If you made it this far and have hung with us, you deserve some sort of award.
High five.
Frito pie.
Baby hammer.
All right, that's enough. Appreciate everybody hanging out, listening, watching. We'll catch you guys next time. Adios.
Peace.